Hi everybody, this is Billy here. I'm doing my wrap-up video on Jerry Spinelli's Maniac McGee. Um, I've read a fair amount of it for my channel. I'm not going to read any more because I hope that you will go ahead and take on uh, the reading yourself. It is a fantastic book, Newbery Award winner. Um, so if you are watching this video without having completed the book, I ask that you pause it, or better yet, close out of it. Um, Find a copy. I'm putting a link to the Indianapolis Library down in the description, and read it for yourself, because spoilers are going to be in this video. Alright, I'm going to give you a moment. Okay, so, Maniac McGee. Um, First time that I read this book was when I was at Ivy Tech, and that was about a year or so ago. Um, didn't read it when I was younger, although I know plenty of people who have. Um, I'm going to walk through the plot of this. I'm going to give a bit of my take on this, and I'm going to explain why I chose to read this for my series that I do. So, that's what I'm going to do. We're going to go ahead and just jump straight into the plot. Ready? Okay. So, Maniac McGee is the story of Maniac McGee. Title character is this young orphan boy, maybe upper elementary, potentially into middle school aged. Um, he ends up coming to this town called Two Mills. Two Mills is a town that is very heavily racially segregated. Um, and Maniac doesn't know that. He literally doesn't. So Maniac enters this town and he's just doing little kid things. He's playing ball games. He's rescuing kids who are getting picked on. He's just running around and just gaining sort of this legend. And one of the things that he does first day that he gets there is he borrows a book from another character, Amanda Beale. Amanda is this really sassy black girl who just carries around all these books, and Maniac runs into her one day and he sees all the books and he just loves books, so he borrows a book from her. He goes off, has a few more adventures, meets another couple of the main characters. I'm going to call them main characters of the book. John McNabb and Mars Bars. So John McNabb is a older white kid. He has a group of kids that he kind of runs around with as like a gang almost. And Mars Bars is a black kid. I believe is about the same age as Maniac. That's not exactly sure on that. He also has a bunch of kids who sort of follow him around. And through Maniac breaking John McNabb's home run record and like not being scared of Mars Bars when he first comes up to him, um, Maniac ends up getting both of them mad at him. Mars Bars sort of corners him at one point, but then Amanda Beale shows up, rescues him from Mars Bars, and for a while, Maniac lives with the Beals. As I mentioned before, Two Mills is a very heavily segregated town, so Maniac lives for a while on the black side of town with this family, and he helps them out. He keeps the two younger kids who aren't old enough to go to school busy all day. He helps to clean. He does all of these nice things, so he's welcome there, and he really grows to an appreciation for the black side of town. He has a really deep appreciation for it. The town doesn't exactly love him back, however, the black side of town. And after, I think, just really one or two incidents, Maniac gets pressured out from town. So he goes and he runs off and he goes to live on his own. Not able to deal with the racial divide that his presence is causing. So he goes off and he lives on his own for a little while before he's found by an elderly man by the name of Grayson. Grayson is also semi-homeless, and he takes Maniac in, and this is the first that Maniac really sees of the white sides of town's ignorance towards the black side of town. Like, it's a very gentle ignorance, but it's still an ignorance. Grayson doesn't really know anything about the black side of town. And so Maniac first kind of gets to know that. He lives with Grayson for a while, teaches him to read, which is adorable. And then Grayson ends up passing because he's very old and they lived pretty unprotected. Um, so Maniac gets ready to run off again. And then he runs into Russell and Piper, who are just these two little devil children who happen to be John McNabb's younger brothers. He meets them when they are ready to run away from home. And Maniac manages to bring them back. Maniac ends up living with the McNabbs for a while. And he sort of realizes why Russell and Piper were ready to run away. The home that they live in, their father is kind of this drunk. He's paranoid. You know, it's a home that is, I think, one of the main descriptors of it that really just gives an idea of the state of the home is it's a 2-story house, but part of the ceiling on the first floor is just this hole. So you can go up to the second floor of the house, you can find where that hole is, and you can literally leap from there down to the next level. So this home has been almost retrofitted to be like a bunker because the McNabb's father is so convinced that one of these days, just the black people from the black side of town are just going to run roughshod over the white side of town. And he's sort of been teaching that to his kids. And so now Maniac has to deal with this militant paranoid ignorance, and sort of find a way to break through that. So eventually what winds up happening is he tries to bring Mars Bars over. Mars Bars sort of realizes, oh God, this is a terrifying situation. And, it doesn't break through immediately. Like, it actually turns into almost a fight. Maniac has to get Mars Bars out of there safely. And then Maniac and Mars Bars just kind of come to more of an understanding where when they start to encounter each other, it's not immediately hostile. While they're walking around town one day, Russell, I don't remember which one it was, one of the boys comes up to both Maniac and Mars Bar because during one of their little Devil Child games that they play, one brother just got stuck up on the top of this bridge where Maniac's parents died, and they asked Maniac to go and help save him. Maniac, because that's the bridge where his parents died, can't go to save them, and he leads off, and Mars Bar has to wind up saving them. So Mars Bar, this kid who, when Maniac McGee first starts walking on the black side of town, just jumps up and gets in his face because, what are you doing on my side of town? Has to go and grab this little kid out of danger, who just like clings to him for basically the rest of the day. And so Mars Bar winds up taking these kids home. They meet with the parents. The parents eventually drive the kids back to where their home is, and through that interaction, there's a deliberate crossing of color lines, not just of Maniac and Mars Bar, but of adults. And so at the start of the book, it kind of mentions part of Maniac's legacy is that he does start to break that racial segregation that exists in Two Mills. And so that is really the part of this book that I like so much. That's one of the things that really makes it work well, is that Maniac is able to cross the line multiple times, but it's not him who completely solves the problem. it takes a lot of build up in this book, a lot of things to set up in proper ways. So you can't skip chapters in Maniac McGee. It is a wonderfully written book. It is a wonderfully I'm going to say musical book, because the way that you read it, like, all of the lines are written kind of like poetry. They're so fun to read aloud, um, so descriptive. So those are some of the big, broad reasons why I chose to read this book. There is a slight elephant in the room as to why I chose to read this book. This is 2020, and there have been Black Lives Matter protests. I'm going to give some of my personal experiences with this book and with the protests as well. I'm going to go ahead and say that I grew up in a very racially segregated area. Um, I grew up in a very, very small town with maybe one black family in it. So, parts of the book that really connect with me are sort of the parts where Maniac has crossed the color line and he winds up coming back to some of the white characters with stories of while he's there, and they're just like, really? They're so taken aback by how Maniac could even cross the color line. Um, and what it highlights to me is sort of this racial ignorance. Um, I mean that in the sense that uh, when people start to have some assumptions about one side of town, either the white side of town or the black side of town, they don't have any personal experience or any personal facts that they can really balance those assumptions out with. So that is one of the things that I think is an important lesson of this book. I think that it is an important lesson that there should be attempts to break color lines. Um, segregation is a harm to our understanding of other people's. Um, and Maniac McGee is just this one kid who, through a lot of varying circumstances, ends up helping to break some of this color line that occurred. And I think that it is a very inspiring story, especially in the times that we live in now. Um, you know, not every character is perfect. You know, some of the black characters make assumptions about Maniac McGee and assumptions about the white side of town that aren't very flattering. But I mean, that is also compared to white characters who literally assume that there's going to be a run on their town and they have to build a pillbox so they can have machine guns and just like, that's, I want to say that it's cartoonish, but in some ways it's not. Um, and Maniac McGee is just a book about breaking those color lines and having those experiences and the importance of it. Um, and that is the reason why I chose it, and that's the reason why I chose to read it. And I hope that you read it too, if you've not. Or if you have read it, I hope that you reread it. Um, and I really hope that it can carry into your life in some ways, that you can go into things with no assumptions, similar to how Maniac does. Go into things with no assumptions. Be kind where you can be kind. Accept kindness where you can accept kindness. Um, this is a little bit more heavy than most other books, but that's sort of the nature of it. It's a serious book. It has a lot of fun moments. It's not a drag to read through, but it takes on a serious topic. And I think that it is important to read books about serious topics, um, because they're just going to expand your mind into other situations that you might not have been in before. Had I read Maniac McGee when I was living in my small town that I came from, Like, I wouldn't have. It would have seemed out of the question for me to live a life like Maniac McGee, because there just were no black people in my town. There was no black side of town. The idea of going and living in a black neighborhood as a child, like, that would have required my parents to move. You know, I wasn't an orphan like Maniac. Um, so it was an experience that I wouldn't have been able to have. Now that I am older and I moved out on my own, yeah, there have been times when I've lived and worked in black neighborhoods, and some of Maniac's journey resonated with me. Um, you know, sort of that, oh, you went there? What's wrong with there? I live there. It's fine. You know, and I think that that is something that that sort of attitude can help to make people have broader experiences and keep racial hatred out of their hearts if they have those moments of actually reaching across color lines. I've probably gone on long enough, um, so I'm going to wrap up here. If there is another book that you would like for me to read, this is one of the few videos on my channel that does have a comments section, so I'd encourage you to go down to that. As I said, I'm going to leave a link to Maniac McGee from the Indianapolis Public Library down in the comments section as well. Um, I hope that you guys stick around for the next book. I hope to see you next time, and I hope to see you all safe. Have a good one. Thank you.